Hey, I'd like to talk about as many as I could think of the myths and wives' tales and urban legends about the classic psychedelics, LSD, mushrooms, perhaps even mescaline. Actually, for sure mescaline too. Let's start with that. And this is kind of a crossover LSD mescaline myth. Okay, so now we all have heard of microdots, at least heard of them most likely. If not, they're little tiny pills. They're so small that they're how big could I say they are? They're about the size of maybe 2 pinheads. It's tiny little barrel-shaped pills, which allegedly should contain LSD. That's what they are. They were invented in the 70s, I believe, to contain LSD. But sometime in the 90s, I remember first hearing, I've got mescaline, man, I got mescaline. Microdots are mescaline. That was the rumor, that was what was going on. And I never stopped hearing that. Up until now, I mean, I still hear people say, oh, I got mescaline, I don't have acid, but I have mescaline. Microdots. Now, this one's simple, guys. Real simple. If you're at all like me, then you are kind of a drug nerd. You're kind of a nerd when it comes to stuff you're interested in. I research the fuck out of things that I'm passionate about. Now, what I've discovered is that through experience as well, for an average dose of mescaline, you need 300 milligrams. 300 to 500 milligrams for it to have an effect. Now, I don't know if you recall, those gel capsules, the vitamin pills, the smaller sized ones contain 500 milligrams when they're packed. That's 500 fucking milligrams packed. So it's literally impossible for those microdots to be, I mean, it's possible for them to contain mescaline, but they're not going to have any effect. It's just not enough. Maybe threshold, maybe maybe a microdose type effect, but other than that, you're not going to get much from it. So that's that. Another one that I hear mescaline being thrown around a lot is for research chemicals. People always like to say, oh, this is synthetic mescaline or digital mescaline when they're trying to sell you 2C, one of the 2CXs. Same sort of shit's happening with M-bomb now. People are, saying it's LSD, but it's a research chemical. Yeah, I don't know how many times I've heard terms like digital mescaline or synthetic mescaline or mescaline being sold as, and I don't know if you guys know it, but you only need a tiny bit of powder when it comes to the 2CX series, and you don't need that much. You certainly don't need 300 to 500 milligrams, which is an average mescaline dose. Moving right along. Psilocybin mushrooms are poison, and that's why you trip. Oh geez. 5-hydroxydimethyltryptamine. That is the chemical term for psilocin. Mushrooms contain psilocin. That psilocin is a very closely related chemical to dimethyltryptamine. It's basically almost the same fucking thing. I don't know if you've heard people describe their high dose mushroom trips being very similar to DMT breakthroughs. Excuse me. Now, DMT is a neurotransmitter in the brain. It belongs in the brain. A neurotransmitter is a chemical that moves signals across neurons, basically. I don't have a formal education in brain chemistry or anything like that, but that's the gist of what I understand dimethyltryptamine, or a neurotransmitter, is. I believe melatonin is also a neurotransmitter, and serotonin. Either way, they are at least partially responsible for our experience of consciousness. So now, the reason you trip, you wouldn't, basically, if it did not contain psilocin, 5-HO-DMT, psilocin, if it did not contain the chemical, you would feel nothing. It would be a food. But being that it contains this very powerful chemical that is very sensitive, that your brain is very sensitive to, you trip off of it. The reason you feel sick at all, some people say, oh, I feel so sick when I eat shrooms, it's got to be poison, is because we have the 5-HT receptor group all over our bodies, in the brains, in the gut, in the stomach, and when they're activated, they cause feelings of nausea, anxious nerves, etc. So that's why you feel that way when you eat shrooms. I felt the exact same way off high dose LSD trips. They act similarly in the body on those receptor groups. So there you have it. Shrooms are not poison. They are, if anything, a drug. I don't even like to call them that. When you think of drugged, you think of some fuck that's glazed over, eyes glazed over, can't fucking think, can't move. And, there's definitely an inebriation associated with psychedelics, but it's not the same as being drugged, in my opinion. So, on the contrary of it being a poison or a toxin, it's actually one of the least toxic substances, least toxic psychoactive substances. It's less toxic than caffeine. It's less toxic than aspirin. In fact, both LSD and mushrooms are less toxic than caffeine and aspirin. The LD50 is astronomical. In other words, you have to eat so much, so many mushrooms or so many hits of LSD that you probably couldn't afford to do that. There's been very few cases of anyone dying, and they've been flukes. Like accident, like there was one, I don't even want to go into it much, but there was one case I can think of where a group of people mistaken crystal LSD for cocaine, or cocaine for crystal LSD, whatever, and they did huge rails of it. They still survived. I'm talking tens and thousands of times of a normal dose. So, bottom line is, these are physically safe chemicals. Psychologically, it's debatable. Neurologically, there's no evidence for any kind of damage. I can talk about the one bad trip I had that quote unquote damaged me for a while. That's for another video, but I will discuss that with some good warnings and some info and possibly be able to help others that are going through something like that or have gone through that. I would call it it was a psychological emergency. But that's, like I said, that's for another one. Back to myths and psychedelics. Oh, where were we? So mushrooms being poisonous. We went through that. Microdots. About LSD fries your brain. Are we all over that one yet? Because I'm pretty sure I've already touched on it being neurologically safe, or as far as we know. It certainly doesn't fry your brain. There's no fucking egg in a frying pan type situation with that. Now, so what else is there? It's not quite a psychedelic, but PCP, angel dust. People saying that there's some kind of connection with embalming fluid, that people smoke embalming fluid, when that was simply a sort of tongue-in-cheek slang term for PCP back in the 70s, maybe 80s. They called it embalming fluid. And somehow that caught on, and people actually believed that they were smoking embalming fluid, or you could smoke embalming fluid when it was just PCP. I don't have any experience with PCP. I don't know much about dissociatives in general. But as far as rumors in regards to that, that's the one I know, or urban legend, myth. What else is there? Doing acid 7 times, you're legally insane. That, I don't even know where that came from. And I think I'm pretty coherent, and I've done acid over, and just psychedelics in general, over, likely over 300 times. So that's just, anecdotal experience there, but I can tell you that that isn't any kind of scientific fact. I don't know where it came from. That's another urban legend that went around. It's just simply not true. Or how about the one where every town has this one, or at least a variation of it. Every new town I've lived in, someone knew someone who had a sheet of acid in their pants, or in their sock, or in their back pocket. Like I said, it varies. And most of the stories, this individual was running from the cops, so they put it in one of these said places, pants, somewhere in the pants. And they ran through a sprinkler, is one version. The other version is they sweat so much that the LSD seeped through their pores. And it was so much LSD, 100 hits, a sheet, whatever, that when the cops found the guy, he was so psychotic that they had to lock him up. And to this day, he thinks he's either a glass of orange juice, and if you come near him, you're going to tip him over, or B, he is an orange, and he's afraid of getting peeled or something like that. I'm pretty sure I heard this story in DARE class, which is sad, because that's supposed to be, educational, and they're fucking throwing propaganda at us like that. So that's a few about LSD that I know. What else is there? There's so many. There's so many scare stories and spooky legends about these drugs that are simply not true. And the reason they continued to perpetually exist and be passed down from one generation to the next is because back in the 70s there was a knee-jerk reaction to ban psychedelics before there was enough research done. No one knew. The research that we did actually accumulate, or evidence, was mostly positive. Yes, you can use it as a weapon. Sure. You can dose someone unwittingly, high dose. and torture them. You know, the CIA did a lot of experiments like that on humans. So there's the dark side of the spectrum where, sure, and a lot of these people probably were never the same. They were traumatized. If you're not careful, it can be a very traumatic experience. And these things, I totally believe, can happen. On the other side of the spectrum, they were using LSD to cure alcoholism. They were using psychedelics in general to help people to heal mental issues, come to terms with issues, whatever. So they were a great psychological tool. But they hit the streets and were being used, and I don't want to use the word abused. They were just, people were being reckless, taking too much, and having psychological emergencies. And so that's all. And then the knee-jerk reaction came to ban them, boom. They did I think what it's called a blanket ban on all psychedelics, all at once. And when that happened, the science was brought to a halt as well. They stopped all research. They couldn't use it anymore. They couldn't study them anymore either. And that was like 40 or so years ago. So what happened is, all we know is the propaganda. That's all we're left with. All the scare stories and shit, and they're mysterious substances still. We still don't know much about them. We do know they're non-toxic. We do know that they can help and they can hurt. They're tools. You can either fucking cut your leg with a chainsaw, or you can build you can cut some lumber, build a house, whatnot. So they are tools. They're not evil, they're not good, they're a tool. Now, so that's my opinion on why we have these crazy rumors still, urban legends and shit. But I think it's fucking crazy how many educated people, seemingly educated, smart people with a lot of experience with psychedelics, still perpetuate some of these rumors and believe them themselves. I think it's strange. So there's that. I'm trying to think of any more that I know. Let's see. Yeah, I can't really think of any more rumors. I'm sure there's more. I just can't fucking dig them out of my head right now. Maybe I'll do a second video if I can think of more. Part 2. Anyway, comment, subscribe, like. What do you think? You know, any rumors? Anything you've heard about? Oh wait, there is one before I'm done. Strychnine. There is no strychnine in LSD. I don't know where that one stems from, but if there was ever a case of strychnine and LSD, it was a fluke. Someone put strychnine on, a sheet of acid or whatever, for whatever reason. But this isn't something that happens in the synthesis of LSD. There's no like, oh, that one had and I remember in high school people were like, yeah, this one had a bit of strychnine in it. It's kind of speedy, and they related the strychnine to speedy effect. There's no speed in LSD either. There's just, if there is, it's going to be completely ineffective on how much you have to take of acid. A tiny little piece of paper cannot contain enough speed, or strychnine for that matter, to cause any effect. I take that back. I don't know the dosage of strychnine, but it just simply isn't in the synthesis. I know that speed can't affect you at that level, though. if they're to be LSD and speed to fit on the same tab, you're going to get the LSD. You're not going to feel the speed. So that's another silly one. So people believe there's a byproduct in the synthesis, and when you make LSD, if you're clean, if you get clean acid and the chemist knew what he was doing, there's not going to be that much strychnine in it. No, that's bullshit. There's no strychnine in LSD. It's not a byproduct of synthesis. Anyway, like, subscribe, comment. I'm going to keep doing videos like this because it's fun for me. And if you want, go ahead and comment some of the rumors you've heard that you're not sure sound funny or fishy to you, or if you can think of one I forgot. Thanks.